Hello, welcome to my presentation. This is hanay, alhai, and I will be talking about Chile's student protest. Chile is a country in western part of South America that happens to be suffering from inequality in education. It also happens to be the most unequal country of the OECD countries. To understand why the current situation and protests in Chile exist, we must first look at the political history that led to the upset with the educational system. The main figure concerned is Augusto Pinochet, the dictator that led a military coup to overthrow the democratically elected president and government in 1973 and rise to power. This event led to the implementation of LOCE. The original sin of educational policy highlights how Chile, a praised model country for its economy, politics, and democracy, turned into turmoil when continued students' protest against the country's educational system snowballed to spark remarks on the country's economy, politics, democracy, injustice, and inequality. Over the years, the quality of education in Chile dramatically decreased due to an overall increase in the number of private universities. A majority of Chilean citizens cannot afford to attend private universities, and only 40% of the Chilean students qualify for a free education, which leaves 60% of the students unqualified and unable to have education. Privatization of some public facilities like these shows restriction to the people who cannot afford the prices set at the institutions, especially in academic areas. This brings about the dictatorship that we talked about earlier, seeking high rates of payment that are forcibly imposed on the entire society. This led to the protest that happened in 2011. Chilean students have initiated an ongoing political movement where the protest began, demanding a new framework for education in the country. They want access to free, quality public education. It was a group of high school students that kick-started the protest, soon joined by university students and older people. The current questioning of students to the educational model and consequently to the economic model, implemented since 1981. The model focuses on four main areas: financing and expenditure, profit, quality, and access to equity. However, it is necessary to remember that the students' movement in favor of peace, social justice, equity, freedom, and democracy. Now I will show you a clip of the protest by Al Jazeera.
Chile's students are back on the streets of Santiago after a break of several months, a mass demonstration calling for free education. It didn't take long for a peaceful march to turn into a violent one.
Just like in previous protests, the government sent in thousands of police officers to try to control the students. For many, this use of force is excessive and unnecessary.
This woman, who asked us not to reveal her name, hid inside this building to escape the gas and the rocks.
They are students. The government shouldn't respond like this. This country has a lot of money for everything except education and healthcare.
Students have been protesting for over a year. Their goal is to transform this country's education system. In particular, they're seeking to increase the funding and quality of public schools and universities.
This demonstration is taking place only a few days after the government announced that they will meet some of the student demands and send a bill to Congress to reform the education system. From now on, it will be the state and not the banks who will finance higher education scholarships.
Camila Vallejo has been the face of the student movement since it began. She says the government's promise is not enough.
de lo perverso del sistema, era necesario eliminar la banca
What
privada.
is perverse about this system is that it was necessary to eliminate private banks from the agenda, but that doesn't resolve the problem of profiting from education. The student financing proposal by the government just reinforces the subsidies for those who profit from educational institutions.
The protesters have kept the issue of education costs on the political agenda. They're the biggest political challenge to the country's conservative president, and they promise not to back down until all their demands are met. Teresa Bo, Al Jazeera, Santiago.
Not only students fought for their rights. Thousands of people gathered and stood up in the protest to reach equality in education. Here is a demonstrator holding a banner that says, "Students, teach us to be brave." Students have engaged in multiple forms of protest. They fought with riot police outside the education minister in Santiago. Policemen used a water cannon on student protesters during a rally to demand changes in the public state education system. Demonstrators tried to stop a police vehicle armed with water cannon during clashes with riot police. Here are two forms of their protest: striking pots and pans during an anti-government rally and shouting. They even confronted the police that sprayed them with water cannon. Another form of the protest is dressing up as superheroes. They had many forms of protest. It wasn't always violent and depressing. I will show you a small clip of the Chilean students' spirit.
Hola, Hola, basta la raja, weón. Colimar. Oh, weón. ¿Qué es esta coordinación, weón? Están ensayando, pues, weón. Porque tiene, pues, weón.
Michelle Bachelet, member of the Chilean Socialist Party and candidate for a board center-left coalition, won the presidential elections of 2013. She states that the principal objective of the new majority coalition will be to achieve and establish a system of universal and free access to higher education. By that ending the educational inequality system that the Chilean people has suffered from many years. Finally, the protest ended in 2013 after Chile has made college tuition free. Interesting fact about the protest: Gabriel Boric, a former student protest leader, has won the final round of Chile's presidential election, which makes him the youngest Chilean president in more than 2 centuries. During the protest, Boric said, and I quote, "I am going to be the president of all Chileans, whether you voted for me or not."